Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm ecstatic, Paul. I'm ecstatic to invite Paul Robinson back onto the podcast and have a conversation. If you don't know who Paul Robinson is, well, Paul is highly respected in the world of health, but especially in thyroid. So, Paul is a thyroid patient himself and thyroid advocate, and he works with people in one-to-one basis, helping them uncover their thyroid issues and needs, and often what's being overlooked by their doctors. Paul is also the author of several thyroid books: The Thyroid Patient's Manual, Recovering with T3, the CT3M, which always catches me. That's like a tongue twister, Paul. And then the newest one, Articles on Hypothyroid. Paul, welcome back to the podcast. It's lovely to see you again.
Well, thank you, Shemaine, for that wonderful introduction.
It, it's
I
Monday
don't think I've
morning.
quite had an introduction that has the word ecstatic in it before, but thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, as you know, I'm on my second coffee and it's Monday morning. And a few times recently, Paul, I've cursed you because I've been talking about your CT3M protocol, and it's such a tongue twister. Like, try say that 10 times real fast. It is not possible.
I should have come up with a better name. Okay, so my background is science and research, and I'm a backroom kind of engineer, kind of researcher. And I should have come up with something simpler like the cortisol boosting protocol, something really easy. But I came up with circadian T3 method, CT3M. I'm really, really, really sorry. It's too late now, but
Yeah.
I'm very, very sorry.
Oh, well, it is too late now. So when people ask me, what is that? I just say, trust it. It's a thyroid protocol. It'll work. It'll be fine. So, Paul, we had our last conversation. It feels like only a few months ago, but it was like 2 years ago.
Wow.
And it was really, really good, of course, well received by a lot of people. And since then, we've both had a lot going on, but we plan to get back to another conversation. So here we are, and wanted to treat this one more like a Q&A conversation. A lot of questions from a lot of our followers and listeners. Um, so before we jump into that, I know you had a conversation with a patient today and you're still kind of in the research kind of thyroid world. What are you noticing is still a problem with thyroid, or is there something new that you're happy to see changing with the world of thyroid now?
Um, I think the overriding change that I'm seeing is that the medical profession seems to be more and more reluctant to be flexible and treat people properly. They're more difficult. It's harder to find a doctor who will give a patient what they really need. That's the biggest change I'm seeing, which is in the medical profession. They're getting worse rather than better, I would say. Um, in terms of research and things coming up in thyroid, I'm not seeing anything that's particularly grabbing my attention.
Yeah.
There are things that come up, but nothing that's fundamental and striking from my point of view.
Yeah, like Keith Littlewood is doing his own research, but nothing that's been published mainstream. Like what he's doing is more focused around cancer and thyroid, but even as awesome as that is, it's not being published mainstream, so people are not seeing it.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
think big pharma has an influence on what doctors will and won't do now?
Who knows? I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know lots of people are. I tend not to, but I definitely think it's getting more and more difficult for thyroid patients to get the treatment that they need. It's doctors are so reluctant to go anywhere near low TSH to give people T3 or anything with T3 in it. It's just hard work for them. It's getting harder and harder. When I was first diagnosed, all I really needed to do was ask my family doctor, could I try T3
Mm.
because I was so ill, and she said fine. It was easy. She didn't need to have a panel of peers who were endocrinologists approve her decision. She could just do it. it's not like that anymore. It's just in this day and age, in the modern era we're in, I can't believe it's got so, draconian.
Mhm. It's the same here. I see people ordering up from Mexico, they're ordering from Thailand, they're ordering from India, they're going on vacation and they're bringing back stuff, and people will do whatever they have to do to get what they need. I have one of my clients, and she's got a list of questions for you. She right now is on 145 micrograms of T3 just
Hmm.
to see relief from her symptoms. But of course, the doctor wouldn't give her that. So then she had to go here, there, everywhere and just build it up herself. And she's constantly in this state of like, I don't know how I'm going to maintain this. How long can I maintain this for? Like, and at the same time, without it, her symptoms weren't mild. They weren't some hair loss and weight gain. Like, she
Yeah,
had no quality of life at all. Couldn't get out of bed, chronic migraines every
yeah.
day, like debilitating. So you're picking and choosing, like, what's more important? Do I put food on the table or do I use this money to order T3 from India?
Yeah, yeah, it's got very bad. What can I say? I mean, I know lots of people on 150 micrograms of T3. I'm only on 70, which is very, very modest, I think, for someone who's got no thyroid gland and absolutely needs T3 to live. 60, 70 micrograms is a modest amount, and yet most doctors are only willing to give 10 or 20 micrograms of
Five
T3,
here.
which isn't enough to fix anything.
I know,
You
five
know?
here.
So it's very, very, it's incredibly difficult for people. I mean, I find it so amazing, so surprising that someone like me, 35 years ago, could get treatment far more easily than people now who've got awful symptoms and they get left symptomatic. The doctors are keeping them sick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And even if someone is getting like, so the average prescription here is going to be 5 micrograms, but if someone gets
Really?
25, and we're still not seeing an improvement, then it's unfathomable to the doctor to go even higher than that because all of a sudden, oh no, you're going to be hyperthyroid. I'm like, don't be
Yeah,
ridiculous. You're not.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't know. Let's get
They're
into the
never
questions.
they're never going to get any improvement from 5 micrograms. Hardly. There'd be. I would be surprised if there's half of 1% of thyroid patients that get improvements from 5 micrograms.
And those
Never
are
going to
people
happen.
that probably don't necessarily have hypothyroid. They just have, they're maybe just tired and they get a little boost from the
Yeah,
thyroid.
that might work.
Yeah. So this client, we're going to try get through as many of the questions as possible. So we'll start with the shorter ones, I think, first. So the
Okay.
first one from this client, she asks, as the body heals with T3, is it common to need to space out daytime doses or better to take it all first thing in the morning?
Okay. My experience with working with lots of people for many years, so it's not just my own personal experience. I've worked with online in terms of forums and all the other ways in which I work with patients. I would say I've worked with thousands of patients on T3 now over a 15-year period. And I would say the vast majority of patients do better with 2 or 3 or possibly 4 doses of T3 during the daytime. If they were on slow release T3, which is unusual, then maybe they could get away with 2. Now, having said that, there are a small proportion, maybe between 1 and 5% of patients who can take one complete dose of T3 all at once in the morning, and they do fine on that. But most people would find they get incredibly hyper after that big dose. And but not only that, 10 hours later, they would be incredibly hypo. It would just have cleared. It would have hit them like 20 cups of coffee, and then 8 hours later, they would be very, very hypothyroid. So in the majority of cases, I would say space it out, take 2 or 3 doses of T3 and try it that way.
I tend to say with the majority of my clients, first thing in the morning and then a second dose with lunchtime, which is where most people start to crash around that midday mark.
Yeah.
So her follow-up question then was, can the last T3 dose be as late as 8 or 9 p.m. if symptoms and signs still point to hypo, like she's still having symptoms?
It can be, but it depends on what situation their cortisol is. In a normal person, the cortisol profile is it starts really high in the morning, and then over the day it gets lower and lower and lower. If cortisol is very low in the evening and you take T3, your body's going to hit the T3 and it's going to want cortisol to be there as a partner. And if the body hasn't got enough cortisol, then it's going to make adrenaline, which is going to be heart thumping time. It's going to be keeping them awake, and it's not going to be a really nice, pleasant sensation at all. If their cortisol is sufficient, then they can do it. Some people take a little dose of T3, maybe 5 micrograms, which is the dose size that you said most prescriptions are, which is
If
not
you're
very
lucky,
good.
if you're lucky.
Not very good. Some people can take a small dose of T3 just before bed, and that can help them sleep. But usually, I would say eight in the evening. If this lady thinks she really is getting hypo by then, and she's taken T3 mid to late afternoon, then she could try it. As long as she doesn't try too much, she could see how her body responds. If she took 5 micrograms or something like that, and it was okay, she could try 10 and just see. I mean, you wouldn't know. It depends on her cortisol status. I personally don't do well with T3 in the evening. I never
Yeah.
have.
The concern would be that it would wire you so much you're not going to sleep. And
Yeah.
sleep is number one. But with that, while we're on this, and thank you for mentioning this, because nobody ever mentions this, what is this connection between T3 and cortisol?
Because they work together, they have independent functions. They work in the cells to do different things, but neither of them work well unless the other one is at a good level. So T3 and cortisol need to be balanced. They're partners. And if T3 doesn't have enough cortisol in the cells, then it requires a steroid to do the same job that cortisol did. And that's that the body makes adrenaline. The body will make adrenaline to compensate. And adrenaline doesn't feel the same as cortisol. Adrenaline is a nasty, nasty thing. It's like having too much of this coffee.
It's like always
And
looking over your shoulder and just doom and
well,
gloom.
it raises the heart rate for one thing. It makes the heart really pound hard, and it just wires you. It's not a nice feeling.
This is where what we many of us practitioners would refer to as that like thyroid adrenal connection, that if something's off with the adrenals, something's off with the thyroid and vice versa, because
Yep.
they're codependent.
Yeah, they need to be balanced with each other for sure. And when I work with a patient in detail, as I did earlier today, I never look at thyroid on its own. I always look at cortisol as well. Not only do I look at cortisol, but I look at 8 to 9 a.m. morning blood cortisol, and I look at saliva cortisol. Saliva cortisol only shows you the free cortisol, the cortisol that's not bound to protein.
Mhm.
Blood cortisol shows you everything, but you can get inconsistencies. The lady I spoke to today had very low blood cortisol, but she had incredibly high saliva cortisol. And she thought she just had high cortisol, but the blood cortisol was low. Normally, when the blood cortisol is low and the saliva is very high, it means that she's hypothyroid. The thyroid levels are not high enough, so the cortisol is just sitting in the blood and it's not actually getting into the cells. So that's why you can get high free cortisol. So I look at both of them, but getting them balanced perfectly for the thyroid levels is essential. Otherwise, you can take as much thyroid hormone as you want. It's not going to work properly. So
Mm,
you
that's
have to look
gold
at both of
for
them.
anyone listening who has a lot of cortisol and adrenal issues. If you're taking a lot of T3 or natural desiccated thyroid and you're still not seeing complete improvement in your symptoms, it's time to look at the cortisol and the adrenals now. Shift your focus.
Yeah, there's almost no way that you can solve it without testing. That's one thing. People can kind of think, oh, well, I think I've got high cortisol, or I think I've got low cortisol, and they're all inevitably wrong. They have to test it because symptoms of low and high cortisol can be very, very similar. With low cortisol, you get adrenaline, so you feel wind up, which
Yeah.
is like high cortisol. You just can't tell. You have to test it.
So you like a combination of blood and saliva. And that's
Absolutely,
the
yeah.
24-hour saliva, like morning, afternoon, evening.
Usually four samples, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, four samples of saliva.
Which is rarely done here.
I know.
But
So in blood cortisol between 8 and 9 a.m. is pretty good, but it can be misleading with the free cortisol. It's best to have both. If I had to choose between one and the other, I'd choose the blood cortisol and not the saliva, which is not what a lot of certainly not what a lot of US doctors do. They rely on saliva cortisol almost in all the time, and I don't think that's necessarily the best thing.
okay. So I suppose this next question kind of ties into diagnosing, for a lack of better term. You
Okay.
don't, if I'm correct, you don't do the morning basal temperature, do you, with your patients?
I don't do it. I don't ask them to measure it when they're in bed as soon as they wake up. No.
Because this next question was, what can cause falsely elevated temperatures
Falsely elevated temperatures. I
in the
mean,
morning? So
if you measure a temperature properly, then it is the temperature.
it's
Now,
not
what does
false,
she mean
yeah.
by falsely
I think she
elevated?
means influenced by an external factor and not the thyroid. So I would have said, well, if you had a lot of sugar before bed, your morning temperature will be higher. Or if you wake up and you're sick the next morning, yeah, your temperature is going to be higher. So that's not necessarily reflective of your thyroid, it's
Yeah.
reflective of that.
Man, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what she's getting at. I mean, obviously, if you had a hot or a cold drink, that would do it. If you had a shower or a bath, that can change the body temperature. So, having not had intake anything and not had any food or drink, and you're sitting in a normal room temperature situation, and you haven't been doing a lot of exercise, you should be getting a pretty reasonable idea of temperature. But I don't just use temperature alone. You have to look at other things like symptoms, gut performance, blood pressure, heart rate. You never just take one sign alone and try to use it in figuring out what's going on. You have to look at a collection of things anyway. So
Well, that was her next question. It says if the temperature is not what we rely on, are blood pressure, heart rate, and symptoms enough to determine when the next T3 dose is due?
it can do, yeah. I mean, as long as you, I don't know where to start answering this. Um,
Well, what are you looking for?
what I found most useful is if someone's trying to make detailed T3 dosing changes, be it dose size or what the timing should be between them, then really they ought to be measuring things frequently. They need to be seeing the pattern of change. So if someone's taking a TT dose there, they should measure the signs and symptoms before it. And then if they're really intent on working out what should be done with the next one, they should be measuring every 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And so they can see the pattern of how temperature and heart rate and blood pressure are changing. It may go up after the dose,
Yeah.
and then it may come down again, and then you can start to see when the next dose should be taken. Is it too early? Is it too late? You can see lots of things from that. You can't just take one snap reading and say, oh, that's what needs to happen. You have to look at a pattern of how things are changing.
Yeah.
And sometimes blood pressure can rise when the dose is too late because blood pressure does go up and heart rate can go up when the next dose is overdue, for instance.
Because the body's stressed and it needs the
It's
help.
exactly that. Yes, Jermaine.
So I don't really understand her next question, but you might. It says, well, then can a strain on the heart be used as a marker to know that it is time for the next T3 dose. And now that I'm reading it, I think you just answered it is yes, if we
Yeah, I
see
think it's what
elevation.
you just said. Yeah, it's exactly that. If the heart rate starts to go up and the BP starts to go up, and the next dose is really overdue, then what she could do is take it and then watch that heart rate and BP come down after it, and then that tells her that it was too late to take it, or the previous dose wasn't high enough.
Yeah.
It's
So
that pattern. That pattern's super important.
this next one, I'm trying to kind of stick with the same kind of topic as we go through the
Okay.
questions. This one again is
Okay.
with temperature. It says, is it possible to have a temperature slightly over 98.6 Fahrenheit or 36.8 Celsius and still experience hypothyroid symptoms? So have you seen people have normal temperatures and still experience symptoms?
Yeah, okay, you can. It's not that common, but it can happen. Some people do better when they're really at the top of the range, and they may not be at the top of the range all the time, and they need to be there.
Mhm.
So it's possible.
Okay, when one does not have reverse T3, and let me just put this out to all of my listeners, at least in Canada, is in Canada, it's quite hard to get reverse T3 tested at all. And then
Yeah.
there's the argument, is there even a point to getting it done? But this question is when one does not have reverse T3 lab results because your health practitioner will not test it, what other marker can help identify a reverse T3 problem?
The most obvious one would be high, high in the range 3T4, but mid-range or low range FT3. You almost certainly got high reverse T3 at that point. I mean, to be honest, if you've got that sort of condition where you've got a really quite high level of free T4, but you've got a much lower level of free T3, you've got a problem anyway.
Yeah,
Whether the RT3 is high or not, you've got a problem. You're not converting very well.
yeah,
So, that would need to get addressed. Should be getting addressed, although it often isn't.
yeah.
Because doctors will say, "Oh, they're in range. You're fine."
That was another question from a different lady here. She said, "How can you help your body convert T4 better?"
Wow. Okay. Well, that could take us into an interesting territories.
Inflammation
Okay.
is one, right?
Hmm?
Inflammation is one, improving inflammation.
Yeah, it can potentially help. I mean, there's an awful lot talked, particularly from the US, about diet, and there's a lot of focus on diet to improve everything. But if someone has, let's be a bit extreme here, if someone has had a thyroidectomy
Hmm.
and they've lost the thyroid gland, for instance, that's an example here, they've lost 25% of their entire physical capability to convert free T4 to free T3. In some people, the thyroid's so important that could be 50% or 60% of their complete capability. You can't get that back with anything. You can't get that back with diet or any lifestyle changes. It's just gone.
Hmm.
That's an extreme example with thyroidectomy. With Hashimoto's, when you've got thyroid tissue damage, you lose some of that, quite a lot in some cases, you know. So yes, if someone's got an obvious issue, say they've got inflammation or say they've got low B12 or something like that, then yes, fix those things. Those things will undoubtedly help you. But if you've got something fundamental going on with your thyroid, particularly if it's not been treated, not been diagnosed early enough, and you've got thyroid tissue damage and you're on thyroid hormone, then you will have lost some conversion ability, and that isn't coming back.
Hmm.
The only way to fix that in most cases is to make sure you're on the right balance of T4 and T3 thyroid hormone. So you've got some of the T3 that you're taking to compensate for the loss of conversion ability.
Mm, that annoys me so much. A lot of women reach out to me and they've had either partial or full thyroidectomy, and
Mm.
all they're given is a measly dose of Synthroid or levothyroxine. They're not even offered natural desiccated. They're offered nothing, and they go around and they feel rubbish. Their hair is falling out, which is important to women, especially as we age, and they're gaining weight, and their heart is broken, but I'm frustrated. I'm like, how can they even get away with doing this?
Yeah. Well, it's fixable. You and I both know that that condition is completely and utterly fixable, except the doctors just think they're treating it properly because their numbers are in range. So their free T4 is at the top of the range and their free T3 is near the bottom of the range, but they're in range, so they're treated.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this is down to medical training again, and the way the endocrinologists are providing the information on how doctors should be trained to treat the condition, and it's just not working.
Or medical incompetence. Because what I've noticed lately is the ranges keep getting bigger and bigger. I saw a range recently and it was 7.5. Like, unless you're outside 7.5, you're fine, you're within range. Are you crazy?
Yeah,
Like, anyway.
yeah.
Okay, a few more on Hashimoto's here. It's a hot topic. How with Hashimoto's is there basically no conversion of T4? No wonder I never feel better.
Well, okay. Well, you don't get no conversion of T4. You always get some conversion. Okay. Hashimoto's doesn't give you no conversion of
But it's
T4.
low.
Just get you get damage to the thyroid and you get worse, far worse conversion than when you were well, for sure. And that once someone has less free T3 than they should have, they feel crap. Bottom line, so it doesn't mean they've got no conversion. And if they had no conversion, they'd be in a coma. Okay, so they're not in a coma, but they just feel crap.
What
They're
about
moved.
conversion at the periphery or at the cells? So not just at the thyroid, everywhere else. Is there more impairment there with Hashimoto's? Because people with Hashimoto's generally do have that higher inflammation.
Well, there is, but it's not. It's not. It's not. I don't think it's due to the autoimmune attack. It's mostly due to the fact that they're probably on levothyroxine. The TSH is probably very, very low. The cells use TSH to determine how well to convert FT4 to FT3. So the conversion rate, doctors and a lot of patients think that conversion rate is fixed. The FT4 to FT3 conversion rate, that's what my conversion rate is, and it just always stays like that. Well, that's not true. If someone takes more thyroid hormone, the cells see more thyroid hormone, and the cells say, okay, we don't need to convert as much to FT4 to FT3. We'll lower the conversion rate.
Mm.
When TSH comes down, the cells say, oh, we don't need to convert as much. We'll lower conversion rate. We'll make less FT3. So things change all the time, even in the cells themselves. The cells are making independent decisions on this. And it's very common with people with Hashimoto's to have much higher FT4 and much lower FT3 than they had when they were well. And that's often to do with the fact that they've been given levothyroxine. The cells are seeing more levo, more T4 rather, and they're seeing lower TSH, and they convert less well. So that's largely what it is. And okay, inflammation might have a bearing on it as well, but you know,
I would wonder if we'd go back to what we said initially there as well about the cortisol adrenal response too, if that's a factor. Why she said, I never feel any better. Well, it may not necessarily be that thyroid, it may be something else.
what's this lady on? Can you tell what medication she's on
I do
from
because
that?
she's the client. She's on 25 micrograms of T3 and if I'm correct, 90 natural desiccated thyroid.
Right.
So, but she does have a history of Epstein-Barr virus, which has been pretty active. And so
Mm.
then you've got that immune response. She's all the symptoms of adrenal fatigue. She's the
If I was
wired but
working
tired.
If I was working with someone like that, I'd want the cortisol to be tested properly, and I'd be immediately suspecting that balance between the NDT and the T3 probably wasn't right. It probably needs more T3 and less T4. But I'd have to see I'd have to see the lab numbers for the thyroid labs to know that.
Mhm.
But she could easily have low cortisol.
So her labs annoyed me the other day. She got her labs done. So she started on this higher dose of thyroid. I believe in March, she started working with a doctor I collaborate with here, one of the few doctors that will actually do testing and prescriptions in the way I want it done, in the
Mm.
way you've taught me and others have taught me. So he'll do it because of podcasts like these. Before we ever spoke, he was listening to my podcasts. So
Okay.
there was that element there of, oh, she knows a little bit more than me, not to toot my own horn, but so she was before that, she was only on Synthroid. So we completely changed her around, and
Mm.
she's feeling so much better now with the thyroid and the T3. And she was taking an extra dose of T3 at lunch, but I stopped that because she was getting racing heart. But it turned out it
Right.
wasn't that, it was salt that was doing it. So we're going back and forth. But so she had her blood test last week to follow up and see what is, where do we stand now? Is this higher dose making a difference? And ugh, the lab told her, don't take your thyroid before you come to get your blood tested. And I was like, because I was super busy, I didn't respond to her on time and say, no, do take it. I want you to take it. Because what we're looking for now is what does your day look like now with this higher dose? And she takes it at 5 a.m. The blood panel was at 10 a.m. It was like
Okay.
10:50 a.m. So there was not going to be any big spike by that time. So,
Uh, not
and
sure.
so they told her not to take anything. And then when I looked at her bloods, everything was low. T3 was low. And then I was like, this is not accurate. Because had you
Okay.
taken that, what we want to see now is what do your days look like every day now with the thyroid. But you didn't take it. And I feel her burn rate is pretty high because of the Epstein Barr and the stress response.
Mm.
But that annoyed me because yeah. She should have taken it so I could see, is this actually helping you each day? Like, what do your days look like now with this thyroid?
Yeah. Okay.
And
Um,
you can correct me if I'm
I,
thinking about this wrong.
I normally recommend an 18-hour gap between a thyroid, anything that contains T3 and the blood draw, which is a lot longer than it would be between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. Uh, the reason being, in some people it can spike up almost 5 times higher than what you'd expect. And the blood levels don't really count much. That's one of the problems we're trying to go on bloods for thought with people on T3. The blood levels don't tell you an enormous amount because the T3 in the blood isn't doing anything. The T3 in the blood is just going round and round and round. It's only when it gets to the cells and then when it gets from inside the cells into the cell nuclei is it actually doing anything. And by that stage, there's a lot less of it than there is in the blood. So I think that it's useful to have the bloods to see that the dose changes are making changes to the bloods, but it still won't tell you whether or not the person's balanced or not.
Mhm.
Um, and symptoms and signs will. So it could be that this person's mainly got a cortisol issue, but she needs to
I
test
think
it.
so. Yeah, I think so. Because of that Epstein-Barr virus, it's just she every day has the symptoms that it's reactive. Every day. I've been working with her since November, and there's been a few days where she hasn't had the symptoms. So that as much as I don't even know what your opinion is on this, so let me ask you, when we talk about like electrolytes and minerals and stuff, we talk about burn rate. The higher your stress is, the faster you'll burn through them. Is that a
Mhm.
thing for thyroid? Does
Not
our
what,
burn
sorry?
rate does the burn rate increase when there's extra stress for thyroid? Like, would you burn through your T3 or your hormones faster?
With what? With what condition?
With just like a lot of chronic stress. So, like this woman, an active Epstein-Barr virus.
Um, well, potentially, yes, I suppose. I mean, Um, did the Epstein-Barr predate the thyroid condition? Did it cause a thyroid condition?
I think so, but I
Because
think
in
there's
my case, it probably did. I had Epstein-Barr, and when I had it, I was completely non-symptomatic. I was completely fine. And then probably 3 or 4 years later, I had chronic Hashimoto's.
that's
So
it.
that's the
Yeah.
way it went for me.
I think she
So
had low thyroid, and then the virus just, because now she has Hashimoto's, the virus just like it blew everything up.
yeah,
So while we're on
yeah.
this, the same lady asks, what about high thyroglobulin and high anti-thyroglobulin results? Does this just mean I have Hashimoto's, or is there another reason why she would have high antibodies? The doctors say they only test these if you have had thyroid cancer before, which is like a roll of the eye moment.
Mm. Have they tested the thyroid peroxidase as well, TPO?
Yeah, yeah.
And is that high or not?
They were all high. Yeah.
Oh, well, she's definitely got Hashimoto's
Oh,
then.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. But the
I mean,
doctors here will tell you there's no reason to test any of these unless you've had thyroid cancer. How crazy is that?
sorry, they don't test them routinely to find out if it's Hashimoto's.
No.
That's crazy.
Only if you've had thyroid cancer. But how do you know I had thyroid cancer?
Seriously, he's saying in Canada generally they don't test TPO and thyroglobulin antibodies for generally.
No, 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 no. That's like you
Because
have to special request that.
because if you've got Hashimoto's, you know you're getting thyroid tissue damage. And if you know you've got thyroid tissue damage, you know you're going to have impaired conversion, and you know that levothyroxine isn't going to work very well. So they should be testing that routinely for anybody with a suspected thyroid problem.
But how can you suspect people have a thyroid problem if they're within the range? See, the catch
If they've got
22.
symptoms, though, like this is okay. So I'm getting old now. I'm 2 or 3 years away from being 70 years old, and when this is going back 35 years now, when I was first diagnosed, I went to my GP and explained the symptoms, and she looked at me and she said, "Okay, we're going to do some tests." And she tested TSH, FT4, FT3, TPO AB, and TGAB. Okay, she tested everything. I didn't know anything. I knew squat about thyroid. I probably couldn't have pointed to the right bit that had a thyroid gland at that
Yeah,
stage.
where
Okay,
is it?
okay. So, but she tested everything, and they all came back really, really bad. Now, FT3, FT4 was almost zero. My TPO AB was like 150. Okay, I was off the scale with it. But that happens over 35 years ago. And now we're in a situation where doctors won't even test the basics to find out if the person has Hashimoto's based on symptoms. My doctor had was symptoms, and she went and tested it.
She was clearly
This
very
is just crazy.
intelligent.
This whole situation's crazy.
Yeah. All they will test here unless you push for more, which is again that doctor I work with, he'll do everything I want. But your average family doctor, the only thing they will do is TSH, and me and you both know that's not even a definitive marker for thyroid, but that's the common. That is your lab
It's
panel.
so awful.
Yeah. So she's interesting in the testing of reverse T3 and how doctors say you don't need it. Perhaps there's something I can ask a new doctor. I think we covered that and why they they say we don't need to test T3. Why do you think they say we don't need T? Is
Because
it because they just don't know?
a lot of them believe that it's just an inactive metabolite. It's just a byproduct of clearing T3 and T4 from the body, okay, with T4 particularly. I don't mean T3. So but basically, when the body's got too much FT4, it will try to get rid of the FT4 by converting it to reverse T3 and clearing it. And the doctors will argue it's an inactive metabolite, it doesn't do anything. However, there is research that says, okay, the reverse T3 itself is an inactive metabolite. However, the enzyme that creates reverse T3, which is called D3 deiodinase, That takes the free T4 and converts some of it to reverse T3. That enzyme, when it gets high, when you're getting a lot of RT3, can actually block the effect of T3 in the cells.
Mhm.
So actually, if someone has high reverse T3, there's a good chance that the free T3 they've got isn't working very well. So in that sense, it isn't really an inactive metabolite. It's a really good marker that you've got some problem going on with conversion. So I think it's a really good thing to test in most cases.
So
But
what you're
in
saying there is T3 might look okay in the blood, but if reverse T3 is high and you don't know it, then there's a high chance the deiodinase enzyme is really high at the cell. So even if your T3 looks okay in the blood, you've still got all these symptoms because the deiodinase is blocking conversion at the cell.
well,
And you
it's
can't,
blocking the action of the T3, yeah. So it can still be a problem. Someone could still be hypo, even when their FT3 levels are good, if the RT3 is high. But hopefully, in most cases, people have got an obvious conversion problem. They've got high free T4 but low FT3. In that case, you don't really need to look at reverse T3. But if reverse T3 is high, then yeah, it can be a problem. So it is worth testing, not necessarily in the first instance with somebody, but when you've still got things going on and you think it really shouldn't be
why is
going
this
on like
not
that,
working? Yeah.
then testing it is helpful.
Yeah, yeah. So, where's this one? She said, but this is a different lady. Is there a link between Hashimoto's or low T3 and chronic migraines? Have you seen that?
Well, low T3 can cause chronic migraines, and Hashimoto's can cause low free T3. So I guess there's a link in that sense. I'm not sure quite what she's looking for there,
What's the
but yeah,
mechanism of action? Why does it cause, why are migraines so, is it because the central nervous system and all is just so stressed?
I couldn't point to the precise reason for the migraines, but migraines are really common with hypothyroidism.
I wonder if it's back to what we were saying about cortisol and adrenaline.
I don't know. Who knows? But I like to test them anyway, and if there's a problem, you try and address it.
So we've only got two more questions and then one big one. So we'll leave the
Oh
big one to
God.
the last.
You frightened me now.
It frightens me. I don't know. We'll at least put it out there and see what happens. Have you seen anybody reduce their T3 as they're responding to bioidentical hormone replacement therapy?
Say that again,
Have
please.
you seen anyone reduce T3 as they start bioidentical hormone therapy? That's an interesting question. I would have thought she'd ask, have you seen anybody improve their T3? But it says reduce.
Um,
So maybe have you seen
yeah,
people get worse?
there is an interesting answer to that. I'm looking at a crib sheet I wrote down earlier, which I thought would be handy. Um, Basically, yes. And the only connection I can see there is really when estradiol rises, okay,
Mm.
you can get well, actually, no, that's the wrong way around. No, actually, I've seen it the reverse. When someone goes on bioidentical hormone replacement and you increase estradiol, that can actually make thyroid binding globulin higher, which can actually lower thyroid hormones. So,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so that's not what she's saying. She's
I
saying,
think it is what she's saying. Like if I was to translate it, it's have you seen anybody's T3 get worse with the use of bioidentical
"Look,
hormone therapy?
it's
And that's
worse.
yeah, and
That's
that's what
worse.
you're saying
Yes.
is
Yes,
estrogen. Yes,
yeah.
can
I
do
mean,
that.
obviously, you obviously, if someone's low on estradiol or low on progesterone, you need to fix them, okay? Because they're not going to feel well unless those things are a reasonable level for them, given their age and what situation they're in. So, postmenopausal ladies, for instance, need to be at decent levels, postmenopausal, not really super low levels. But yes, when you add the hormones in, yes, you might need to increase the thyroid treatment
Mhm.
potentially, so you can
In
change
our
it.
general sphere that we run in with Keith and a few others, It's commonly spoken about that progesterone is pro-thyroid, it increases thyroid function, and estrogen is anti-thyroid. So that should just simplify the answer for them there. You expect an improvement with progesterone and a deprovement, a
Yeah,
worsening with
yeah,
estrogen.
yeah. That's a simpler way of answering it than mine. Thank you.
This next question, this is our last before the big one, is the
Oh
same
dear.
thing. She said, this other lady, do you expect hypothyroidism to improve as estrogen dominance is being addressed or improved? So yes, would be the answer. That's what we just said.
Probably yes. I mean, what I can say generally is that you will see changes to both. You will see changes if the sex hormones, the HRT protocol is being changed, you can get changes with the thyroid. And if you're changing the thyroid dose, you can get changes with what's needed to do over here with the sex hormones. Simplest example there is if you're increasing thyroid hormones, you can get changes to sex hormone binding globulin, SHBG, that can rise. If you increase in T3, SHBG can go up, which basically lowers estrogen levels, free estrogen. So you might need to raise the HRT level. So this changes both ways.
And that's only if,
You have to keep your eyes on the ball in terms of the HRT and in terms of the thyroid treatment because both can change.
well, what you're saying as well is that T3 can help with that estrogen dominance too. If it's increasing the sex
Yeah,
hormone binding globulin,
yes, it can.
then you're reducing that free estrogen.
Yeah,
Okay, you ready for this?
I'm not sure I am actually, Shemaine.
This is a big one.
Isn't this time for a quick break?
Yeah, do you have some whiskey there? I ran this one. Do you know who Morley Robbins is?
Uh,
He's the
yeah,
copper iron guy. He's
the
great.
magnesium guy, isn't he?
Yeah. So I ran this by Morley as well last week, and
Oh,
he's
God.
like, send me the bloods.
Oh, dear.
Okay. Right.
Does he
Let's
know you were going to be giving this to me?
Yeah, I've been giving it to everyone. People generally don't mind because they're like, I just want an answer. Okay.
Okay.
Last year, my TSH was 1.67. T3 was 4.5. T4 was 12.2. So,
Okay, I'd need to know what the ranges were for this. I can't do it just on numbers because the ranges are different in different countries.
well, the measurements, yeah, they're different. She hasn't put them in here. So this would be Canadian measurements.
I
Let me
don't know.
just finish this and then maybe you could Google the convert what Canada ranges are and well, I read this.
I'll
Uh,
read it again then. I'll write them down. TSH.
TSH was 1.67, which is definitely
That,
considered normal in
yeah, that's
Canada.
okay. I'm more bothered about the other ones.
T3
FT3.
was 4.5
Yeah.
and T4 was 12.2.
Mm-hmm.
I was put on desiccated thyroid for symptoms of hypothyroid, so low temperature and lots of hair loss. And paradoxically, my condition worsened. Hair started falling out at an extremely exaggerated rate, and my TSH went up to 3, so it doubled. My T3 has gone down to 4.1, and T4 has gone up to 13.2. Finally, my minerals were tested and realized my zinc was 9.5, my copper was 15.9, and magnesium was 0.76. After 6 weeks of IV zinc and magnesium therapy, the numbers changed to zinc 12, copper 13.9, and magnesium 0.87. So magnesium is still very low. My dark circles have improved. My nail growth has made her horizontal ridges grow out. Her hair fall is still horrendous, she said. Hair has not grown in 5 years. My internal medicine guy noticed with my genetics that she has different SNPs, AG variant, which makes me someone who needs extra zinc. Also, I have the DIO2 enzyme. That means she has decreased conversion of T4 to T3, which you can see above. What do you think is going on, and how would you approach this?
I get off the NDT and use T3 only.
How much would you use, do you think?
I don't know I don't know how much NDT is on at the moment.
I don't know. She didn't say. She's not a
But
client of mine.
basically, I mean, if his FT3 went down and he's on NDT, then he's converting even worse, having added in the T4.
Hmm.
So that looks like a classic kind of not responding to NDT with a DIO2 gene defect. That can happen. I don't know. What I can't understand is why TSH would have gone up when he added NDT, and that I do not know, unless at the same time he's also got either Hashimoto's going on and there's thyroid damage going on, or atrophic thyroiditis. So the thyroid gland itself is shrinking. He could probably do with having his antibodies tested and having a scan of the thyroid to see what's going on with it. But other than that, I would have thought NDT is the wrong answer.
Yeah, so the focus should just be on the T3. Just give her loads of T3, which would probably improve the TSH as well.
Potentially, but I mean, he definitely needs to get the FT3 up. It shouldn't be going from 4.5 to 4.1.
Yeah.
I mean, he needs to get that raised. But, the hair loss as well, it could be a number of other things. Again, he should test cortisol.
Hmm. Well,
Low
I believe
cortisol
she
causes
has
hair
those.
loss. One of the first things that happened to me with when I had low cortisol, I lost all the hair in my legs. That went.
Yeah, that is a thyroid thing for men for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what do you think about, because she's very much the last few weeks been focused on these different SNPs and like she's been doing zinc therapy and feels like it's improved some of her symptoms. What do you think of that?
Which therapy?
Zinc. She's doing zinc, IV zinc
Oh,
therapy.
him. I have no idea. It's not really, that isn't something I focus on an awful lot. I mean, he knows more. If he's talking about Morley still, he knows more about the minerals than I do. So by a long way,
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
Morley said that he believes this is just almost like a acute response where she's feeling better, but in the long term it's going to feel worse.
I don't know about
So
that. I mean, I think he's on the wrong treatment. I think he should be using T3, not NDT. So that seems quite obvious to me. I mean, he needs a proper thyroid test. He needs the antibodies tested and a thyroid scan. Find out what's going on with it.
I think the conclusion to this podcast, Paul, is everybody needs T3. Just give
Well,
everybody
that's not
T3.
true, though. Well, that's not really true. I mean, that's because you're asking me for the people that look like they do need T3, but in some cases, people do really well on levothyroxine and T4.
I
If
don't
they, okay, you don't believe it,
know.
but if they don't have a fundamental, they haven't lost loads of thyroid tissue, and they haven't got gene defects, some people do really well on T4, so long as the doctor's willing to give them enough and let that TSH get super low and then keep giving them enough and they tolerate it, they can get to a stage where the patients actually convert it pretty well. So it does work for some. An NDT and or T4, T3 works for some. But the people you talked to me today about, we've been talking a lot about T3, and that they seem to fit. So, you
Mhm.
know, when I'm working with patients, which I don't do as often these days as I used to, when I'm working with patients, I use whatever works. And if what works best is to get them off thyroid hormone and fix their iron or their B12, that's cool too. That's what I do.
Mhm.
I think you need to be open-minded, which obviously you are in your practice when you're working with patients. But the people asking questions today, there's been an awful lot about T3. So,
For
you know,
context for people, because we spoke a bit about doses, most doctors here in Canada, at least, are given 5 micrograms of T3 if you're lucky, which is laughable. But I
yeah.
do have a client that she has taken more, but right now she's stable at 145 micrograms of T3, which any doctor who hears that will have a heart attack immediately. Oh no, you can't do that. You're going to be hyper. No. But for her to get just like livable conditions where her symptoms are relieved, that's what she needs.
Hmm.
Most people are never going to get prescribed that much. I think you said in the UK, is it 25 micrograms is the minimum prescription?
The minimum, I don't know. There's a minimum at all, actually. I don't know what. It's very hard. It's not consistent across the UK. It depends on what health area you're in. Different areas of the country, on the West Coast, they're terrible. They don't want to give T3 to anybody. I'm lucky. I'm on the East Coast over here, and my area is pretty good, and my doctor's very flexible. So it just depends what area you're in, and they all have different rules. They all have different opinions. The endocrinologists in different areas have different opinions. It's a lot of it is down to an opinion. It's not, it's not based on any logic.
Practical.
Yeah, fine.
So this is my last question. I just threw this in because you said a minute ago, bring the TSH down as low as possible. What do you consider to be as low as possible? Are you concerned if TSH is like zero?
No,
No, either am I.
not in most cases. No.
Yeah.
There's doctors think suppressed TSH is going to be linked to heart problems or it's going to be linked to bone loss. And in most cases, this is not true. What causes bone loss, most of all in women anyway, is low estradiol. And second to that, it's hypothyroidism, not hyperthyroidism. So low TSH usually isn't anything to do with it. And bone loss, yes, bone loss can be caused when you've got very, very high thyroid hormones, but that's not the same as low TSH. You can have very low TSH, but your FT3 is well within range,
Hmm.
So I'm not concerned about that. If the person, say the person, I know you don't necessarily believe this, but say the person is starting to feel okay on T4 medication or levothyroxine, and they feel almost right, but they're still a little bit hypo. And you could increase it by 25 micrograms, but that takes their TSH below the range. I would have no problem in doing that. That would be fine. Just do it. Low TSH isn't, in most people, going to cause a problem at all.
Mm. I think,
Although, what there's evidence from the past that when people are hyperthyroid, they're truly hyperthyroid, like with Graves' disease, the thyroid's pumping loads of hormones out, and you get low TSH. Um, yes, they can have bone loss, but that's because they've got high thyroid hormone. So a lot of these decisions, a lot of these thoughts the doctors have about TSH is to do with genuine hyperthyroidism.
mhm.
It's not a person that's got low TSH because they're on thyroid treatment. It's not the same thing at all. So I'm not bothered about low TSH in most cases. If you can treat someone and not have low TSH and they feel really well, that's fine. It's
Mhm.
great. But if you have to get the TSH down to give them enough hormone to make them well, then just do it.
Yeah, that so if they did have genuine hyperthyroidist, we would also see that in the other thyroid numbers. So
Yeah,
you would
you would.
see, I think TSH is almost irrelevant at this stage, and doctors obsess over it. If it's under one, oh my God, that I'm like, ideally we want to see it under one and see everything else high. So it's like I'm not even concerned. Like the lady the other day, her TSH was like zero point 0.2 or something. And I said, that's just a number to me. Like it means nothing. I'm not concerned about that. So let's not
Not
even
the most
worry about
important thing to look at. If you were looking at thyroid numbers, the most important thing to look at would be free T3, maybe free T4, possibly reverse T3, the antibodies for sure. And TSH, I'd put at the end of that pack.
it. If even, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, this was a great conversation. I'm even more ecstatic now.
Oh God.
Thank you for this and making the time. I know you've got your own things going on, but this turned out really good. I think it's going to be really helpful for everyone, not just the people asking the questions. I think we covered things that are generally not covered in thyroid conversations, and that's what we want.
Yeah, most of these questions I've not been asked before, including Morley's big question.
Yeah. That's why sometimes if I've had a guest on a few times, it's better to just do a Q&A because people have already listened to our other conversations.
Yeah.
And when they listen, they're like, but in their head, they've got questions. So then they are able to gather them and send them to me, and then I can ask. So um,
Okay.
we don't want to be repeating ourselves or what other people are repeating. We want to actually answer people. So I think we did that. Thank
Great.
you, Paul, for your time. We will chat soon, as we always do. Where can
Thanks.
people find you and more about your work, your books, everything?
The easiest place to look would be my website, which is paulrobinsonthyroid.com. And then that will take you to information about my books and my blogs that I've written and various other things.
You have a good YouTube channel, and for Canadian and American listeners, you can find Paul's books on Amazon as well, which is probably the easiest place for us to get them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Jermaine. Thanks for having me on your show again. Thank you.
Anytime.